to the agenda. Barrett, do you have anything? No? Any of the board have any? Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. James, all in favor? And carried. Adoption of the minutes, February 26th, they're attached to your package. Larry?
Adopt the minutes.
Okay, all in favor? And carried. We have a delegation coming in at 11:30, and we'll move on to reports. Farah? The administration's report?
Yeah, so we did a bunch, or we finished that ladies livestock clinic. So we told you about it last meeting. It was going to happen the day after our last meeting, and it went really, really quite well. If we scroll down, there's some summaries of it. I think there's an extension report coming up. We also attended the invasive species conference, which is always a fun one. That's what the picture here is. So they had a speaker come out and show how to be engaging with different audiences. Our tree program closed. We've had some discussions about staff training, and we're working on onboarding kind of materials for new staff. Some more set up for county fair, some school related initiatives. So the classroom agriculture program. We are also looking at some explosives regulation. Just a reminder that the bursary application for the Ag Service Board bursary is closing on April 15th. As of now, I've only seen one application come through. So just a reminder to plant some seeds on that. We've started on gopher control sales. So we still have the 4 products available. So Ramic Green, Ground Force, and then 2 different quantities of Rosal sizes. And then we're prepping to do the central third of the roadside spraying program.
Question, if I could, back to you on the gopher control.
Yeah.
Do we rent out the bait stations too? Because I'd seen that one ratepayer request for one of the cemeteries.
Yeah, so it's kind of a gray area because it's meant for agriculture producers or certified applicators. So I saw that come through, and I have a note to look through our spraying business license, so our service registration, and make sure that applications for those products are covered under our service registration. In the past, like I just got my rodent control applicator's license this month, so I'm not sure if it's on our spraying business license. So
Because we did do ball diamonds last year, there were stations on both Bath and Gadsby. Maybe some other animals too, I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, and then we had an investigation with Health Canada, and we found some kind of discrepancies in the label, so we had to change it up a little bit.
If I may, on the 4 kind, in your trials or tests, is there one product that's better than the other?
People seem to really like the Rosal. Municipality I worked at before didn't have gophers because it's up in the north, so I didn't have much experience with that. And then we had to discontinue our bait stations early last year, so I haven't actually worked with all these products that much, but I'm hoping to do some tests because we don't really get a lot of traction on the Ramic Green and the Ground Force. So this year I'm hoping to do some kind of tests when we go and put out our bait stations. So I'm just waiting on the certificate to come from the province for me to be able to put out the products.
Thank you.
A question on the ladies calving clinic. It's been in Rumsey a couple times now, and it has been in Weimar a couple of times. So do you know where they're hosting next year?
Yeah, so the letter that's in the extension report, so I guess we'll segue into the extension report. We're going to host it in Hannah next year.
Oh, okay.
Like in 2028, I guess, or 7, sorry. Because it's an every other year event.
Okay, gotcha.
The next one in 2027 will be in Hannah.
I can't believe that this is the largest one ever, because when you hold them that often, you think a lot of them, people would have been through them, but they're still attracting new attendees, so that's good.
And we had an awesome lineup. Like there was 6 or 8 veterinarians that came from the University of Calgary, and we did lots of live demonstrations. So there was one on like how to properly hook up chains to the calf to not hurt its legs when you're going to pull it. And then there was 2 big calving simulators. So they'd put the rubber calves in the cow in like a breech position, or like one leg's twisted, and you had to feel in there and figure out what was wrong and how to adjust it. So there was lineups, like we ran out of time for everyone to go through, but people were really quite excited about those ones. Mm-hmm. And then the vet mentorship session that we did at the clinic was very well received too. So one of the things that I learned was C's get degrees even in vet school. So they have a threshold for grades, and above that, if you're a 4.0 or a 3.9, you have the same chance of getting in. So it's above that threshold. It's not like you're prioritized based off of grades, which is what I had thought it was in the past. So it's kind of less intimidating. We had 16, sorry.
This one relates to the picture of the pumping of the water.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, is there a culvert across that road?
Yeah, Public Works, I think, had the culvert froze up, and then we had quite a bit of backlog of water, so we were just kind of remedying the pressure on the road there.
I want to know why they froze it up. Yeah. I'm just kind of wondering, like, does Public Works have a facility in order to build all the culverts out? I'm just looking at the time that takes for this versus that.
Actually, this particular one here, we have found that there will be a replacement put in this summer or this spring. We'll be closing the road, digging it up, and putting a new culvert in this position here. And that will allow us to be able to better service the spring runoff in this area.
Is it very far from our own place? I'm just kind of wondering.
It's
Not that water.
Yeah, it's not about anybody mad where you're pumping it. They just want it.
Yeah.
How, can you fill my dugout?
That was 20-1.
this one is directly east of our shop location, our operations shop location. About that'd be 2.5 miles. Yep.
So yeah, you might have been able to get that water.
Thank you.
One more thing before we go fully to the admin report. This is our picture of our new spray truck. We've been able to do some test runs on it, and it seems like it's going to be quite sweet for the next summer. So like the calibration of the truck is much more efficient. So before, the guys had to suit up in their full spray suits and respirator and aprons and whatever else. For this one, you can't really see it, but there's a sight window. So you push down the calibration tube and it just comes up. And if it's between the high and low mark, then it's calibrated. So all you need for calibration is a glove. You push it down, you go in the cab. It calibrates, you can readjust from within the cab. So that'll make us quite a bit more efficient. So, yeah. So we talked a little bit about the Ladies Livestock Clinic. One of the highlights was how many people we got there. We talked about the UFC. We had 16 municipalities, like people from 16 municipalities attending the clinic, and then some from Saskatchewan. So we get quite a bit of reach for people that are coming to the clinic, which is quite impressive.
So the picture there is that our bursary winner from last year on the actual pamphlet, the pink pamphlet back up. Right there. It's Amanda, and is that her daughter? No. Who's the high fiving?
I think that is her daughter, but our bursary winner last year was Colby Norman.
Oh, right. It was the year before that we went to 2 years. Yeah. And I think she's looking to become a vet, actually.
Yeah. So she was, I think, one of our student mentorship
Oh, cool.
So there's a big group picture at the bottom, lots of fun stats, and then quite a bit of a reach for what we've got for people coming to these events. Now for the grand total for the year, we've got 250 people attended workshops. We've hosted, or 215, and we've hosted 9 extension activities, and that includes 4 one-on-one consultations for various environmental initiatives.
So do you do feedback analysis too? And what have you been getting back? Like, what's the comments come back? Anything we need to change?
You always get kind of mixed feedback. You get one person that says, I don't like the evening because it's too late, and the next person is, I'm thankful it's in the evening, I work during the day. So it's lots of those kind of mixed comments. There's nothing really for trends that I would say is much for improvement. It's kind of just a mixed bag. The one thing we're going to try and maybe focus on is advertising a little bit, because it's like I've got a couple comments of I didn't see this, or I only found out about it because my friend told me. So we pool.
Or you could do.
Yeah.
It's on Facebook. It's on Twitter. It's on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what other media that it's out there that it'd be nice to be able to ask those people.
Yeah, we pool.
Where would you like us to? And it'll be, yeah, could you send it to my email?
In the surveys, we actually do how did you hear about the event? And it seems to be a lot of word of mouth and a lot of from the website. So
I mean,
unexpected for me.
post at the vet clinic, but I mean, we got, a multiple amounts of vets that people deal with. So it's hard to hit them all.
It sure is refreshing to see that there's that kind of an uptake in these workshops, because that's what we're striving for, is to have more workshops, and they seem like they're really popular. So.
Mm-hmm. This one was a huge hit.
Yeah.
So in that letter below, there's a couple of the comments of what people had said about the workshop. So obviously we pulled the awesome comments, but there was very few feedback kind of comments in the whole stack of 147 people that attended the workshop. Are there any more questions about the calving clinic? Okay, I'll keep rolling. Now we're in the tree order program. So I did a little spiel on the history of the program. So we started ours in 2014 after the PFRA kind of discontinued their free tree program. So last year we did quite a big push at the county fair with those tree bursaries, and we brought the tree planter out. And it seems like we've got quite a few more orders. This year we have 14 orders and 1,961 trees. Last year we had 4 orders and 295 trees. So it seems like our advertising at the fair worked quite well, or maybe people are just feeling more hopeful that this year will be wetter.
Where most of their trees died.
Yeah. So did the winners at the fair of the tree packages, did they order?
Yeah. So when I do the cost breakdown or the discount breakdown, that's the $500 asterisk that's next to the discounts. So
They used them up good.
some of them they both had to did orders larger than $250. Spruce was our big winner for tree types, and then poplar was our next most popular, and then we had some pine trees that people wanted.
I appreciate the optimism of someone planting oak.
Good for them.
I actually have 2 that I've planted, and I know I will not enjoy them, but hopefully my grandchildren will.
Yeah, the mock orange one. I was like, I wonder what kind of tree that is. And then I was gonna look into it, but I didn't. So that one was also interesting. That's
Again, I didn't make the list, I see.
Yeah, that's all I have for reports, and then I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Jackson for the spring webinar report.
Oh, thank you, Farah. I was able to attend the spring webinar online last week, and they had two topics that they were working on in the webinar. One being avian influenza, basically an update report as to what we have seen and where we are now, and the other was basically a spring wildfire preparedness report as we are entering into that season. So I will start with, I have the printouts. If I will circulate them to all the board members via email so that you can peruse them a little further or utilize them in any way that you see fit. Initially, the avian influenza was presented by Dolores Peters. She's an animal health surveillance unit, the head of that animal health surveillance unit. And what she reviewed was where we'd been in the years previous and where we see ourselves now. Basically, what we have right now is the understanding that we are seeing this not so much on our soil, but in the U.S. side. We're seeing it expand to the point where we're understanding it a lot better. It's not just birds. It's not just wild waterfowl. We are seeing it in cats. We are seeing it in dairy, and we are seeing it somewhat in humans as well. With that being said, when dairy herds are coming into contact with this, and it is being tested and found in their herds, it hasn't caused fatalities within the herds. Basically, you're seeing depressed volumes of production in the dairy herds. And the number one way that they're testing and finding avian flu in the dairy herds is through raw milk tests. So that is something that they are doing extensively in Canada. We are testing raw milk supplies as they are coming in from producers. And at this point, we haven't seen any indication that there's avian flu in our dairy herds in Canada at this point. Where we are seeing it enter into the cats and the human side of things is with contact. Both cats and humans contact with either birds or consumption of products that have the avian flu virus as well in with it. So that's where we're seeing it in those areas. Again, not seeing necessary fatalities, but we are just seeing the sickness. There was one fatality reported. I just have that here. Sorry. Internationally, there was 3 and 1 fatality reported in the US. There has been 0 human fatalities reported in Canada. So we're seeing it's rather light on that end of it still. And closer monitoring is ongoing.
Ernie has a question. You said it's in cats. I'm just kind of wondering, what type of symptoms did they really show? But
They meow a lot.
So in essence, what they're noticing both in the dairy herds or in the felines or whatnot is a depressed state of energy, etc. There'd be some physical signs as well. Just give me one moment and I can get that detail for you. But there would be, the usual physical signs that you would notice in an animal that's feeling depressed. There would be lethargy, depressed eating or appetite, things of that nature.
is there anything showing up as say like sneezing or something like that?
I'm just gonna pull that up specifically. So absolutely, there isn't so much necessarily like any respiratory issue or concern that they're seeing in those animals. What they are seeing though is an increased set of eye infections and drainage through that portion of the animals. So yeah.
That's good.
So yeah, and so going forward, what they are doing, they have released basically outlines as to how to proceed if producers are concerned and they feel as though they've got sick cattle. They have been requested to contact the provincial vet, and they would go through basically a checklist at that point with the vet, and then it would then be determined whether or not samples would be taken from those animals and then tested and to ensure that they were dealing with avian flu specifically. As well, sick cats, the same. Contact with your vet if you feel as though there's any issues or concerns. Wild animals, there is a contact line. If you feel as though that you may be viewing some animals in the wild, they're talking usually are scavenger animals, so our skunks, raccoons, etc., things like that, that may have consumed ill or dead animals that have died. Mostly what they're seeing is wild waterfowl, potentially that are bringing it up from the US with the migratory patterns that we're seeing. So if there's any concerns of that nature that that there is maybe some wild animals that have been viewed that you have concerns with, there is a phone number that is included with the package that can be contacted, and they can further assist you with determining whether or not that is what we're dealing with. So there is continued surveillance and ongoing alertness throughout Canada, as we want to ensure that if we have any of this enter into our country at a larger, higher rate, that they want to be on top of it.
Larry has a question.
And with cattle, is it treatment or is it their own treatment similar to what happened with the poultry producers?
No, so basically what it is when it runs through your, when it runs through like a dairy herd, what they're seeing is they aren't utilizing the same methods of cleaning things up. So you basically, you don't lose your herd as they are in the poultry. Basically at that point in time, they're doing a flock reduction to contain it. In dairy herds, no, it's your usual vet medical background that's going to take care of it. They're just basically removing those cattle from the production line to allow them to be able to go through that and isolate and then carry on. So they would be tested again later on, and then they would clear and be free to go.
Ernie has a question.
Is there, okay, back in '02, we had the scare of BSE. So is there any possibility of having a scare like that within our agriculture?
In relation to the avian flu?
Yeah.
No, it has been found in, like I said, US herds.
Okay.
However, it's not disabling that animal to the point that they would need to be put down or anything of that nature. Where they're seen is just a depressed state of health as they work through the illness, and then once they return back to their healthy state, they're free to. So if we were to see it in a dairy herd, which is where they're predominantly seen, because those herds are under such great scrutiny for illness, that's where we're catching it. A lot of beef producers, et cetera, and things like that, well, you're not going to likely see necessarily that animal unless they, get quite excessively sick and you're monitoring very closely. You're not going to be noticing that great of a health concern in your herd. They're going to work their way through it, and you're going to continue on. And those animals will, if you're getting into a feedlot state, of course, those animals are closely monitored. They'd basically be just like any other illness. They'd be held from the food chain until they're better, and then they'd be reintroduced and be able to be processed. So
if I related to ourselves having a cold, be much the same thing then.
much the same.
Thank you.
Vera?
Just to build on that, despite the risk of avian influenza being low for a disaster like BSE, the province does have it on their radar, so it's a notifiable disease under the Animal Health Act. So it's like some of the other notifiable diseases are the BSE, so your mad cow, and you've got like chronic waste, foot and mouth, rabies. Those kind of diseases are on the province's hot list of ones that could cause more concern than your typical livestock disease. So the risk is low, but the province is on it, is basically short answer.
Yeah, and yeah, very much like Farah said, they're on alert. It does not affect the bovine side of things as much as it would our fowl. So like our herds, chickens, et cetera, stuff like that, that's where you are going to definitely see. So the cross contamination is a great concern.
Thank you.
they advising tighter safety protocols on this at this time, or are the ones in place sufficient?
Biosecurity measures that a lot of the farms are utilizing in that are very much sufficient. The biggest thing that they are alerting people to are, of course, the cross-contamination areas that are potential. There is that fact that we have, people going across the border and coming back again. So they're, of course, saying, ensure that any visitors to your property, you're vetting them and ensuring that they won't necessarily bring this to your property. Their larger concern, though, is at this season, the way we are right now, with migratory waterfowl coming up and contaminated water sources then. So once that waterfowl comes into the area and, maybe settles in an area with a slough or things like that, that we're seeing potentially that's where our contamination will cross over. So it may cross over into, a beef or a dairy herd or something that may have access to a water area. And then, that producer may be visiting to another or things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Biosecurity measures are key in a lot of the agricultural production that we're doing right now. And producers are doing a good job. It's just to be vigilant and carry on with it.
Has there been any cross-contamination with sheep yet?
That's been reported.
Guys are all gonna have to become sheep farmers. It's that simple.
I might not like the price though.
Just get my 2 cents.
Is there any further questions on that?
That's another.
You're saying in a slough, so is it just with airborne or is it also within water, like if the cattle drink that?
So what would be the concern is with the waterfowl that would come into that slough, and then I guess contamination would be a contamination area of, so they'd be defecating and et cetera, and there'd be direct contact with fluids from those animals that are sick. Then yes, then when the cattle or something were to maybe become in contact with that contaminated water source, then that's when they may see that could be transferred to them and on and on.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions on that, we'll move on to the Fire Smart. So we are coming into the spring season, and this is something that we definitely have to be aware of in all regions of Alberta, not just the northern parts. We do see with years that we've had previous where we've got lots of dry grass, et cetera, and we move into the spring season with low snow volumes, that the snow is melting off and the grass is remaining as a firebox or a tinderbox style of fuel for fires until it becomes green. Unfortunately, we have frost and cold temperatures that are going to continue to keep the grass from turning green for a while yet. So even though we seem like it's a little early, we do have the challenge of ensuring that we are vigilant in keeping the fires and the wildfires from starting at this season. In 2023, the first wildfire started in Alberta, middle of April. So we are seeing those conditions coming to head even as we speak right now. We've got snow melting off and cool temperatures persisting through the rest of this month into the next. So, until we green up, it will take some time. I do have in the package that I will forward to you all. Basically, it's from the Alberta government. It's a farm and acreage Fire Smart package. So it's great ideas, lots of tips and things like that, and how you can protect yourself and your property as well. There is an information package that includes when you have to basically stay in place during a wildfire and try to protect, because it's not feasible or it's not fundamentally possible for you to be able to move your entire operation, livestock, etc., off your place. And so things that you can do in order to better prepare yourself for that event if you had to stay in place and protect your livestock where they're at. So there's design features and there's opportunities for producers to be able to put into place on their property to ensure that they've got the best chance at their livestock surviving and their property from getting damaged during the event of a wildfire.
And I think from past experiences, a lot of farms and acreages, if they keep just a larger area mowed or shortly cut, that's a huge protection factor in itself. Because I know down by Hannah, there was a wildfire. It started actually in a harvest field, and it was extremely windy, and that thing took off, and it burnt for miles, and it went right around an acreage, because that acreage, they had cut the whole acreage short. So it burnt some trees at the edge, but then when it got into the short grass, it couldn't burn. So it went right around, it jumped a road and burnt an old farmstead out and jumped the highway, and it was really moving. But had that acreage had not cut every acre in the acreage, I'm sure they would have lost it.
There is information included in these packages that shows the distance, and it's interesting, really, the small area that you have to have as a perimeter cut zone, exactly as Mr. Stolberg mentioned. A mowed area around your property does not have to be, in effect, you'd feel as though you'd be needing, 50 yards or something of that nature before your closest building and things. And there has been multiple instances throughout the province where, a mowed area of nothing more than, 25 feet has basically saved an entire yard, where everything was burnt, and I mean charred around it, and yet that yard remained perfectly undisturbed. So definitely there are some small measures that can be taken that can go a long ways in protecting your property.
Justin?
Have we looked into doing some sort of workshop? If our ASB partnered with, say, our fire department on some of these fire smart type tips, they could go into fuel storage or bale storage or that sort of thing.
We did one last spring, so like spring of 2024, and we had provincial wildfire people come out, and when we get back up to staffing levels, it was one of the wish list kind of items to do maybe a more hands-on kind of summertime event of like a community kind of approach, where you would go through some of the communities and be like, this yard is good for this, this, and this, but they should improve that. And then go to the next house and maybe partner it with some aquatic invasive species type information as well. So it's on the docket, but
Just to expand on that, fire as well has done training less from the agricultural field type, but independently over the last few years, up at the lake especially is where we tend to see at the wildland urban interfaces is generally where Fire Smart has been really pushed. So we have seen those before as well. So.
Paul?
Yeah, and it's only a concern of mine. Ducks Unlimited are very bad bunch of operators, because they only allow their pastures to be grazed every 3 years. So there's a lot of dead foliage there. Our next door neighbor bought a half section right next to us, and it's partly in the coulee. They bought it 15 years ago. There hasn't been a cow on it anytime. So again, that's a very big concern if it gets in that coulee. Like, I don't know how we can address this situation, but it's something that is very concerning to me. So
We've heard that concern before. It's real. It is definitely a real concern.
and we have quite a bit of Ducks Unlimited around us, within 5, 6, 7 miles, and it's a lot of it's heavily treed too. So, and it's being a firefighter, it's going to be a tough situation should this stuff ever come in, because we'll never be able to fight it ground side. So we may be able to slow it down, but
So what we're planning on doing is we will add some information to the next issue of the County of Stettler Connection magazine. Just some basically where ratepayers can source this information that we do have, and easy mark spots on any provincial websites that they can find this information in order to utilize it, and work towards maybe putting together a workshop that we can put out there and have people interested in. And down the road, absolutely.
Les?
Sounds good. Yeah, go ahead.
Just part of that too is even in where you've got, like, you go into certain commercial shops and there's paint, cupboards or cabinets. I know when our shop burnt down, that was one thing that was bothering me is you could almost count the aerosol cans that were shooting through the roof, and you're looking where your bales were piled, and you're looking where these would land. So it probably is a very good investment for people when they're looking at even their shops. Put in one of those cabinets, which I haven't did yet, so maybe I better.
I mean, that's an interesting one, because I do think that it's, I think about that regularly as far as where I store my propane. I mean, everybody's got them, right? You either have a propane bottle or those little bottle torches, right? I mean, it's just something you don't think about, but I never thought about the aerosol cans. That's interesting. I've got it in a wood cabinet that would
Ignite them, yeah.
Get it hotter.
Stored in kindling.
Back to the old days. Remember we used to have the glass bottle above, and then when it broke from the heat, that it would put it out. So I'm dating myself a little now. So.
One item that was emphasized during the webinar was that each operation is an individual operation. Everyone's different out there. And what we're seeing more of in Alberta is a lot of more hobby farm style or smaller niche market farms. And the diversity across the province isn't allowing for a stamped, one plan suits all. So producers are being encouraged to look at their own operations, just as these same items as you've alluded to here today, and be smart about it. Look at where you're storing these items. Look where overhead power lines are. Look where your transformer poles are in comparison to bale stacks or dry combustibles, things like that. Try to eliminate as many of those as possible on your own property, and then at the same time give yourself a little bit of protection from the fire that starts 1 mile, 2 mile, 25 miles away, depending on the conditions that may come through the area.
Now that we're talking about like individual farms and having plans, in the fall, so I think it was November, we had a workshop scheduled for walking people through the environmental farm or the farm emergency plan workbook that Protective Services had made, and we were going to have Protective Services and Ag Services go out and walk people through step by step. Have you considered this as part of your plan? Unfortunately, that one was canceled due to lack of interest in November.
And another thing is what to store and not to store in a furnace room, because that is the recipe for disaster too sometimes.
Absolutely can be. So I will circulate these materials to all the board members, and we'll have it available. And like I said, we can put information out on our website, and we will also put information out in the County Connections magazine as well.
Okay. And was there anything else in the webinar that you wanted to share?
Those were the two items that we spoke and reviewed.
Dave?
Years ago, I was working for Dean's Oil Field. In Maple Creek, there was no grass there. It was like this floor. And it would burn. Train went by and it started, the clinker went out. It started 2 fires. And that would burn, like the fire would be 2 feet high. And I didn't think there was anything there to burn at all. And you know what happens in Maple Creek, wind blowing like crazy. We pulled in there with the water trucks for the filling pipeline and opened her up. And, you put a 1/4 of a mile in no time flat because we got on it before it got started. When there's a real bad fire, I don't know. My solution at home there, the one white side quarter that Danny has, we trace all the cows over there. Run them out on that alkali slough. It's about 60 acres. And because it's, but where else you gonna put 100 cows? You can't really. But you should try it, and my wife, she keeps that mold around the yard and everything, we get some more than that high, she cuts it off. Tries to kill it, I think. But that grass, when it's really, that old prairie grass, and tame grass too, it's dry. I couldn't believe the heat got off that. So you can, we should try not to burn the buildings down. Should we try to protect the cattle and the animals, but at the end of the day, I think you gotta have a plan where you run them in a slough or the cattle, or else you put them in an alkalized slough. And go round and round them and keep them there. That's would be my alternative at home there. We got Loudon Lake too, it's no
Water in it is.
no water ever. It's like Sullivan, you could chase them out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my 2 bits.
Alrighty then, if there's no further questions, I'll ask for a mover for all the reports. Paul,
I will do so.
all in favor? And carried. There were no board requests for information, and I don't believe any business arising from minutes. So we'll move on to new business. 8.1, it's a verbal report on the beaver control, storage and supplies.
Yep, so I'll take this one. We have been doing some reviews on different efficiencies for the Ag Service Department, and we've found that we're currently licensed as a vendor for beaver control product sales. So we're looking at discontinuing being a vendor and potentially finding partnership for the use of these products at a different location, or looking at a more contract-based service.
So, any partners in mind at this time?
We've got some feelers out with Flagstaff County, or there's a provincial contractor that we've got some lines out for. Now we're just waiting for bites.
And the supply we do have, we can move that on to someone that's.
Yeah, we still have our active vendor status, so we'd be able to offload that when we would offload the storage facility as well.
Any questions, Paul?
Do we ever trap beavers and relocate them? Or is it just blowing up dams more or less that we are concerned with?
There's like some of the environmental groups would have trapping and relocation programs. Like, it's becoming more of a trend that beavers are helpful, not harmful. They're calling them ecosystem engineers. Like, if you go to some of the different environmental groups pages, some of them play trickling water sounds over speakers to try and attract more beavers, and do pond levelers so that the dams have less of an impact. So I'm sure that they would do some kind of beaver relocation, but as of now, the county does not.
And only saying that, our creek was dry last year for the first time that I ever remember, and the neighbors keep shooting out our beavers, so that's why I'm saying if there is relocation, please bring them down.
Yeah, environment will stop you from damming that creek, but they won't stop the beavers.
Larry?
That's just, to continue with what Paul just said there. Have had a lot of complaints because you get totally different mixed farming in areas, and one area in particular, one owner wanted the beaver dams left, somebody else wanted it blown out, so that it can get wet again. And even this year, the way that creek is flowing, and I did stop and look at the creek last night, and the beavers are working busy as a beaver in there.
Yeah.
So I can just suspect where the phone will start to ring again. So we just, whatever partnership we do or whatever we do, we have to make sure that we've got effective accessibility to them, because yes, it could have been possibly something we haven't heard of much for the last 2 years, but now it could be starting it.
So, Mr. McKay, I'm with you on this. I find it quite interesting that we have on a regular basis the Alberta government looking at off-stream water storage on a regular basis, spending millions of dollars to do it, when the beavers have been doing it for centuries. And I get it, there are places where they do flooding and there is some issues, but I think there almost needs to be a larger provincial plan to help these guys do their job the way they're supposed to. Mother Nature will do a lot of good work for us, and sometimes we think we're smarter, but we're not necessarily.
I was just talking to a lady in the, I think, off of Gadsby area this spring, and And she was one that loves having those beavers, but trapping some water in the creeks, because when we've had these dry years, that's the only place there's been water is in the beaver dams. So she's been pretty happy with that. And then I noticed in my area where one of the creeks has a beaver dam on it, the local colony has been taking that water from in the very last thing in the fall and moving it to their dugout on the colony to winter, or to use for the purposes of livestock watering there over winter. And then in the spring, of course, it's full again. But if it wasn't for that beaver dam, that water had been long gone to Sullivan Lake, and it would just evaporated over there. So yeah, they do a lot of good. I have Justin and Greg.
I know during the drought, I've been getting more and more complaints from the lake area because all the dugouts are drying up. So they're going to the only water available, which is the lake. And they have been taking down a ton of trees. And this is a tricky one because I don't know what it is that we can do in that populated of an area. It's pretty difficult to shoot them in a residential area. Trapping them is its own set of risks with kids and animals and pets and everything else around. You might trap what you're not expecting to, but I struggle with spending a ton of time and money on this when people move out to rural areas to be closer to nature. You can't be upset when nature's next to you. You can't have it both ways.
If I can, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to assure the board, while we're working through our options, FARA has her blasting certificate and it will be maintained. We do have our storage facility licensed and it will be maintained. And we do have plenty of product that, we will be able to utilize to serve the needs of the ratepayers as requests come in. So there won't be an interruption to the service by any means. So that people aren't worried that their options are limited by any means if they do require blasting of a beaver dam to ensure that we don't have flooding of arable acres or items of that nature.
Also, too, I just want to prevent the backyard chemists. There's 2 or 3 years ago, the calls on Sundays where it shook stuff in cupboards and everything else. Why would the county go out there on a Sunday and do this? I said, I can't guarantee, but I can guarantee that it wasn't the county today. So it was people they called it that.
Don't give them any ideas.
Yeah.
But it created, I guess there wasn't a stick to be found. Maybe they used a little bit too much.
If you see enough of it, you can do anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like
Yeah,
when
so
they're,
that's just, we don't need people doing that themselves either. But with grain land and cattle, it's just, there's one area in my area that gets blown, don't blow, blown, don't blow.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So by all means, like I said, Miss Fisher has her license and I really want to just be able to go out and watch. So if there's anyone that has any issues this year, by all means, give us a call and we'll get Farrah onto it and then we can make sure that we take care of it.
yeah, they
Load
should,
it up real good.
We may utilize the video capacity of a drone to watch some of this stuff as well. So
Sure, all I know is good.
at a distance.
Could you imagine
Your budget.
A big stick.
Yeah.
It'd be a good shot.
It would be a great shot.
That'd be good YouTube material, I tell you.
there you go. Might win funniest home videos. Okay, so that's that on the, I guess we received for information, the beaver control report. All
I will do so.
in favor? Carried. If a verbal report on the centennial tree planting.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're working with the school at Bymore, and we've had contact with them. Ms. Fisher's contacted it as well as I have made contact with the school. The trees are ordered, and we will be working with them to set up a time and a location to have the students plant their trees. We'll work with them in regards to the care and whatnot, as to proper care on the trees so that they have the opportunity for them to grow for years going forward. As well, we will be working on Also bringing to council a request for decision in regards to a particular tree and plaque position for the centennial as well. So
Okay. What kind of trees are the students planting?
they're the white spruce trees, correct?
White
Yeah.
spruce? Okay.
Yeah, so just to build on that, the tree planting program is supposed to be kind of similar to what we've done at the Erskine School in the past. So the agriculture department, or we would help the site prep and then help with tree planting. And then beyond that, each individual student is responsible for the care of their tree.
If you go back to 67, when they planted a lot of trees at schools, it was very, it's very nice to drive by there, even though Gadsby School is no longer an active school. But the size of the trees there, it's phenomenal. And how many actually grew because the kids were watering them, not even through the summer months. But a lot of times, I know we would go in and water the trees in the summertime. So it was just pride in the community too.
Yeah, it's nice to see for sure. Okay, any questions on that program? I'll ask for a mover. Larry, all in favor? Carried. Now moving on into correspondence. Is there anything that we need to pull forward? The one that I did notice is the one on the canola. It's China 9.8. I think that's something that is quite worthy of us getting on board. It's on page 29 of your package. But, tariffs are hurting everybody in this. China has retaliated on the tariff Canada's put on their electric vehicles, and they decided to target canola. So really, I've seen it suggested before that the money the federal government is collecting on these electric vehicle tariffs, some of that should go to support the canola producers for the losses of price, because it dropped the price several bucks a bushel on canola, the Chinese tariffs. So depends what the board thinks though. Larry?
Just a comment on that, though, up at the spring convention, did Minister of Agriculture not mention that we had a canola plant coming in that would basically take the biggest majority of that export? So I think it's good to support this because it could be future markets. Mm-hmm. But in the same sense, I was glad to hear that our market should be, like, we should be able to absorb that by this fall.
Yeah, James?
Mr. Chairman, I do know that the Saskatchewan government has put a huge amount of money into a plant in southern Saskatchewan, and but their premier is still very, very excited about the loss of markets go forward, and not necessarily just the markets as they are today, but any future markets that we may be losing. And we're not going to see this as an immediate punishment to our producers, because most of the contracts are all forward contracts. When they call for it, you've already contracted. It'll be next year's market that we don't have anymore. So I do think this is something we should support.
Yeah, I do too, because the last time China did that to us is when that Asian woman was being held in Vancouver under house arrest for the U.S. And all of a sudden they found bugs in our canola, which we know there were no bugs in our canola, but it was just a way to get even. And it seems like they always target agriculture as a way to get even. So I think we have to protect our agriculture producers. Dave?
Yeah, I think we have a real problem, but I think it's going to make us better, because we're going to have to get making, margarine here instead of sending it over there, and they make oil and make everything out of it. We're going to have to get more final in every sector of whether it's cattle, whether it's hogs, whether what it is, and not be so dependent on somebody putting a tariff on us.
Yeah, no, value added is definitely the way to go, because it creates jobs in our own country. but we produce so much more than we can possibly use here. We do need export markets as well, but if we can become less dependent on it, it is better. But so if the board thinks it's worthwhile to write a letter on this, I think it's valuable.
I'll make a motion that we send a support letter for sure.
Okay, and we can pretty much follow this one and pick and choose what the best points are. Okay, all those in favor of James' motion? And that one's carried. Okay, anything else out of correspondence that we need to address?
I've got a few things.
Okay, okay, you go for it.
So correspondence 9.3, the provincial wild boar specialist has launched a new monthly wild boar update newsletter. I thought that one was quite an interesting read. So it's some of the trends that the trappers are finding, different stats. So if that's something you guys are interested in, I think that her email is at the bottom, and she's just taking subscriptions through that Hannah McKenzie email at the bottom of the newsletter. I thought it was quite interesting. The next one I'm pulling out is 9.9. So this is environmental farm plans completions by municipality. So there's 77 municipalities that participate in the environmental farm program. So that would include like some of the urban municipalities, which is why we would have more than our rurals. The interesting thing to pull out here is that the county of Stettler has an above average amount of environmental farm plans getting approved. So the average is 9, and we did 11 last year. So that's quite promising. So the environmental farm plan is just that on-farm risk assessment that gets producers access to some of the provincial funding. And it's quite easy. It used to be that big scary binder, and now it's a 6 to 8 hour online workbook.
Quick and easy.
But it used to be like you had to do your own math on every page, and it was a full 4-inch binder. So now it's quite intuitive compared. And I can help people with it.
That does sound like a big improvement, though.
Then I've got 9.11. So last summer, it was big news that the use of the lambda calathrine insecticide products, so that would be like your Matador and Silencer, were removed for products that would end up in feed use. I think that registration has changed, so some of the feedback from last year has changed that ruling for the determination of this insecticide. So just to update on some of the stuff we did last year. The next one I'm going to pull out is 9.12, Battle River Research Group's annual report. Next month we have the new manager of Battle River Research Group, the assistant or the vice chair, and one of our local representatives from the research group coming to present to us. So just some pre-reading before next month if you wanted to have a little bit more time with the annual report for questions. Then I also included the government of Saskatchewan in 9.13 has done quite extensive research on Richardson ground squirrels, so gopher control. So they're looking at the costs per acre of different products, and then some of the alternatives to chemical controls. So they're just trying to increase awareness to some of the pasture management practices and predator kind of uses that you can use to also control Richardson ground squirrel, because we get lots of questions of what's the best way. So the government of Saskatchewan has done some quite extensive research, and some of it was partnered with the MD of Willow Creek. So that's an Alberta municipality. That's all I had to pull out of correspondence.
Okay. got no interesting information for sure. And like Farah said, make sure you go through the Battle River report before next month's meeting. So we'll have questions for the group when they come.
I lied, Les. I have one more.
Okay, go ahead.
So the Alberta Land Property Rights Services has opened up a survey for producer feedback on how it's been to work with LRPT. So there's a survey and they're hoping to maybe make it a little bit more useful to producers and kind of break down some of the barriers there. So I've included in 914 the links to those surveys for feedback.
Post those links. Get them out to our people as much as we can. Is that possible?
Put that as a note. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Also on that, after that, we have that, property rights tribunal and the surface rights board and all the presentations here. I do have presentations that I'll get to Nikki or.
Your mic's off, Mr. Chair.
I do have, I'm not Mr. Chair today, so I do have, materials I'll get to Nikki that can forward, if we need to forward that out, because it had all the contact, AER contact and all those other pieces too for unpaid, surface rights or lease payments.
Ernie, did you have something? No, okay. Any other discussion on this? If not, I'll ask for a mover. Paul?
I'll receive it for information.
Okay, all those in favor? And carried. Moving on to finances, verbal report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in essence, we're still early in the season, so our finances are very much reflective of that. We aren't seeing any overages or any unheard of costs or unforeseen costs that are coming in. What we are, definitely a couple items I would like to touch on though is one is training. We are making sure that we are putting the training time into our staff and getting them what they need and encouraging them if there's anything that they feel that would assist them in doing their job and more efficiently and better as they go along. We are definitely supporting that. So that is one thing that we are working in. And as well, computer services, we are, I'd like to be able to, I can report to you that we have secured our seasonal staff members, and so we are gathering a couple more iPads for use with Ag Services. So we have utilized some of those funds as well in order to get that information into the hands of our staff when we're working this summer.
Okay, James?
And just on the staff side, are we fully staffed for the spring season to come up? Like, our seasonal staff is
Yes, correct.
all done?
Yes.
And go forward on your replacement to kick you out of that position?
So to kick me out of this position at this point in time, we've received
Maybe that one should go on camera.
a bean camera.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if we've received some.
We've received some resumes and that, working through the process.
I don't need an in-camera.
Yeah, no, if we're not going into the evaluation of those resumes.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to know if we actually got some. That's all.
Quite a few.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on your financial report, Craig?
That's all I have unless there's any specific questions.
Any questions?
I'll give you a motion to receive information.
Okay, James, let's give a motion. All in favor? And carried. There was no board member reports, program deadlines. Our ASB bursary deadline is April 15th. So as Farah said, we've only had one come in so far. So if the board members could share that information any place they see fit. And Michelle, I guess, as a county, we can share that again somewhere. Okay. Larry?
Just criteria again, just so that we can get out to people.
Farah, do you?
It's just someone in post-secondary program is basically the general criteria, and then they get evaluated based on their contributions to agriculture.
Okay. And then the number 13.1, the county fair event show is coming up July and August. We're a part of that again. And then we have an in-camera session coming up as well. So if someone move us in. All in favor? Carried.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I'm gonna, you go.
Oh, sorry, Dave did have a
On
comment.
that one, I want to move adjournment.
Not quite. We do have a delegation
We
now.
got a delegate.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Okay. Okay, so we're ready to go? Okay. Okay. Good morning, Davin.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome. And we're going to do introductions here so you know who you're speaking with today.
Sounds good. And whoever's monitoring the incoming people, my colleague Shane Hedderson, he should be joining, but he's just going to sit in the background and be a fly on the wall.
Okay, sure. Okay, we'll start with Greg.
Greg Jackson, Director of Operations.
Ernie Gender, board member, good morning.
Paul McKay, board member.
Dave Grover, board member.
Larry Clark, board member.
Justin Stevens, one of our board members, has just stepped out, but he'll likely be back. I'm Les Stuhlberg. I'm chair of ASB.
And James Nyberg, board member.
Mayor Fisher, Assistant Manager of Agricultural Services.
And lastly, I'm Andrew Grishek, Director of Municipal Services.
And online.
Online is Yvette Cassidy, and from her office, and then your colleague has just signed it as well.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Go ahead, Davin. Begin your presentation.
Shane's just going to stay on mute. Shane's our Director of Western Operations for Clean Farms, and me, Davin. For those of you who don't know, I'm the Alberta Program Advisor with Clean Farms. And so going to give you guys a presentation about the empty containers here. Let's just see where the sharing is. I don't know if I've been given authority.
Just enabled it. Did it pop? Did you get a new button?
Just waiting for it to show up. Not yet.
Sorry. Just...
Oh, there we go. There, it just arrived. Give me half a moment. There you go. You should see this screen come up with, there you go. I think I see it on the red. Okie dokie. So Clean Farms, those of you who are not aware, we're an industry-led not-for-profit stewardship organization. We run collection and recycling programs and safe disposal across Canada. Depending on the province, there are different programs that are offered. There is our core programs, which are offered across the country. They're primarily the crop input packaging. So we've got over 200 members. So we operate our programs on behalf of our member companies. They essentially fund them and provide direction. They make up our board, and then we operate on their behalf. So pesticide, fertilizer, seed, animal health, medication, and ag plastics. So in Alberta, we have our 4 core programs here: the small container program, totes and drums, our seed, pesticide, and inoculant bags, as well as the unwanted pesticide and livestock equine medications. So kind of like the household hazardous waste, but for the old unused pesticides. And then pilot programs, grain bags, twine, and then I have a smaller pilot for feed bags with trout nutrition in a couple locations. If you ever want to see the distribution and collection sites for anything, you can visit csmap.cleanfarms.ca, and then you select the province, and then there's a toggle for the product category, hit find, and it gives you a list of every site, a little map of them. But today we are talking about this transition that's been happening of the pesticide and fertilizer containers, and then answering some of your questions. I know the primary thing was about possibly keeping some of the sites open in Stettler. So just to provide rationale, for those that are not aware, in 2021 at the ASB conference, there was a resolution carried to cease collection of small containers at municipal sites in the province. Part of the reasons being these big, loose, unmanned sites with a lot of maintenance to the municipalities and effort in keeping them clean and tidy, as well as there was funding that was removed by the government and less royalties being provided through oil and gas. And so just a decision made and that ASB resolution carrying. Another issue with it is at these sites, with several of them being unattended, there's persistent issues with unaccepted materials. So this is, old unwanted chemical being dropped off, non-deposit drums and totes as well, unrinsed containers. So just illegal dumping, creating a mess and, hazard on these sites. And so the benefits of retail collection is it's convenient for farmers. So totes and drums, non-deposit, have always been returned to retail. The seed, pesticide, and inoculant bags are returned to the retail, the point of purchase. That's fairly new in the province in the last couple of years. And then the unwanted pesticide and livestock medication, those collection events happen once every 3 years. Southern Alberta, Northern Alberta, a gap year, Southern, Northern. So providing that at retail. So by having everything all at retail, it does provide the benefit that it's just bring everything back to the same location all at once. There's typically better access for farmers, days and hours the sites are open. Most transfer sites in the province are only open limited hours and days of the week, whereas retails are typically open, 5 to 7 days a week, especially during the growing season with very long hours. There's decreased costs to the program by harmonizing logistics, communication across all the prairie provinces, as well as in terms of how we can operate it with equipment from our contractors. And then it's industry led and funded, so no costs end up going to the municipalities. So in this case, and as a result of this transition, we can now offer on-location pickup for large volume users. So it's even taking another step out of it away from the farmer. For those that have larger volumes, we can pick up directly from the farm, and that's based on change in equipment that's used as a result of this transition.
Gavin, do you mind questions through your presentation, or would you prefer them at the end?
You can fire away. I will probably answer most of the questions as we go through, but ask away. Let's do it.
We'll go with James Nyberg then.
So you were speaking of this now, as a producer, do I have to bring back the jugs to the producer that I purchased them from? Because multiple producers or multiple providers, multiple jugs, are these producers able to take, or these retailers taking all product, or do I have to go to 3 different spots if I bought from 3 different spots?
So it depends on your retailer. Experience so far in the last 3 years is most of the retailers are just taking anything. You're a customer from them, they're taking it, whether you purchased the product from them or not. There have been, to be very honest, there have been some retailers that said, we're not collecting anything that's not our product that we sold or not from customer, like unless it's a customer of ours.
So can we get that list in Stettler? Because here's my problem. I just don't want to have our producers hamstrung with the fact that if we have some retailers that are going, well, I'm only taking the stuff that came from me, where some of these retailers, we're proximity closer to Red Deer, we're closer to Camrose, some are closer to Drum and Hannah, but yet they're making a run into Stettler and want to drop off some of the stuff that they've done.
So in reality, what ends up happening is that the retailers just start taking back all the stuff. So in Stettler, because it's been pushed off, several of your sites were supposed to close, except the largest volume site, which was the landfill. They were supposed to phase out based on volume, but with the last manager of Ag Services, there was a decision made to just keep all the sites open until January 1st of this year. So some of the retailers have not yet made a pickup request. I think there's only 2. I'm going to get to that in the presentation. But most of the 22-ish retailers that are in and around Stettler County have already participated in the program. And from what I understand is that they're taking anything and everything.
Okay, thank you.
That being said, it's, that's a producer, call your retailer and ask them. At the end of the day, realistically, what it comes down to is no retailer is going to turn their customer away if it means their customer is going to the competition. So, but I'll get to some of that stuff further along. Another benefit from the municipality standpoint and the retailer and us and industry in general is just we do see higher rinse rates at retailers versus municipal sites. Unfortunately, human behavior is that they treat a retail site with respect and they treat a landfill site, a transfer station, as a dump. And so there's just less care given, which actually provides, not a great public perception on the industry as a whole. And then we get cleaner, safer sites in general with proper higher rinse rates. And then as you can see, the pickups for retailers are based, we have a online pickup request system. So when the retailer accumulates 10 bags or more, they make a pickup request. Our contractor arrives within 10 business days. That's their service standard. On average, last year in Alberta, it was about 4.5 days from the time a request was made by the time they picked it up. So one of the key metrics for our contractor is maintaining that service standard. And these are just examples. So all other provinces, just reiterating, have been collection at retail for 20 plus years, and just kind of what it looks like versus a municipal site.
One thing I've noticed that municipal sites, lots of times they don't bother taking them, like the smaller jugs out of boxes, they just throw everything in there. So they wouldn't get away with that at retail.
Correct. It's actually rinse them properly, put them in, you respect your retailer. So just for reference from some of the stats from 2024, so we had 85% of all retailers make a pickup request in 2024, with still having 36% of municipal sites open. And that 36% of the municipal sites probably provided, close to 70% of the actual volume of containers. So in the past, that number's decreased, obviously, in the last couple of years because a lot of the volume is starting to go back to retail. This other 15-ish% is some retailers saying, we're just going to wait until the municipal sites close. And some of them are saying, we're retailers that were offering it, but their ratepayer or, their customer, it was easier to take it to the municipal site, or just the habit of taking it back to the municipal site. And then I always get the question of like, which retailers are, there's a retailer saying they're never going to participate. Out of the 280 some retailers in the province, we've made the phone calls. There's 12 that said they would never participate. And in 2024, 7 of those 12 did participate. I've since had 2 of them call this spring and set up in our online system. So the number of retailers who are not participating or not wanting to is very, very low. Again, a large benefit of this move to retail transition is the on-farm pickup for the large volume users.
What's the definition of large?
Definition of large is the accumulation of product. So in terms of small containers, bags of containers, it's like 30-ish bags of containers, okay, which seems like a lot if you're a smaller producer, but there's several large farms in the province that have already taken advantage of this. We also have a couple scenarios where there's 2 or 3 farms that are, they're on adjacent quarters and they just put all their containers at someone's bins and we pick up from there. So they make a large volume together. In terms of communication tools, so all the sites have received these site closure signs. I believe that there's 2 in Stettler that were misplaced, and either yesterday or today or tomorrow, our contractor is dropping those off so that they can be posted. We have social media content available to use and have had it available throughout the transition, newsletter content. This link basically has all those resources for municipalities to help spread the word. And then I'm going to get back to more of this a little further in the presentation. So here's the question about the distribution of sites in around Stettler County. So Stettler itself, I believe the county border is something about like what I'm outlining here. So when we look at the sites that like in the Peace region there's a couple municipal sites that have stayed open because there's absolutely no retailers around. This is quite the distribution of retailers. And with all this being said, the 20-ish that are, when I count all these and looking at the numbers, they've all made pickup requests, except 2, I believe. And one of them, I've already spoken to them and they're ready to make pickup requests this year. So part of the rationale was that the municipal sites were still open, so they didn't need to.
I just noticed the one at the Warden, but I know who that is now. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, yeah, for the municipal sites that are staying open, there's 2 cases. No retailers in the area. There's a couple in the Peace region and also in special areas because of the vast area. And then there's 2 municipalities in the province that are actually licensed vendors. They're basically the retailer in their municipality. And so they are collecting as a retailer as well. In terms of the other side of it, though, is many municipalities, we have set up in our online system, and we can do this for Stettler as well, is internal use containers. So these are containers used for weed control on your municipal lands, ditches, parks, that kind of stuff. Some municipalities are just, bagging them and taking them back to where they purchased them. Some buy them from Farmers Business Network where it's delivered to them. Essentially, we can create a pickup location. All the ones that are currently set up are at a ag shop or the utility shop, basically where the chemical is stored and mixed. We can collect back there as long as the jugs are rinsed, booklets are removed, they're in the collection bags. We provide the pickup request system, the login information to, usually the ag fieldman that manages this, and then they just submit a pickup request. The key here is that it's on a municipal, like at the public works or ag shop, just so that, again, we're not getting open drop-offs from the public at these sites. And then this is just what it looks like. So collections are April to October, as they were before, same time period. 10 plus bags equals 10 business days of a pickup standard. Most municipalities do not use that many jugs, so they make a pickup request. It still goes in the system when the contractor can get there. It's sometimes a little more than 10 business days. If it needs to be within that time, we contact the contractor and get them there sooner. Several of the municipalities that did this last year, they just waited till the end of the season and made 1 pickup request because everything gets cleaned out in October regardless of volume. This is what the compactor trailer looks like that's collecting these, rather than in the past, if anyone had ever seen our contractor, they would show up to the main site, haul all the loose jugs in, and they would shred on site. This is a lot cleaner and safer. So they have a picker arm at the front of this trailer, drops it in, and a compactor that basically densifies it so they can then take it back to a location and shred it all at their facility. So there were specific questions that were asked, which is which retailers are accepting. That map showed it. I'll send you the link. If you want the specific list, I can send that as well as an email later. But the 20-ish retailers around the county, like I said, most retailers are accepting from all farmers. Some have said that they'll only accept from their customers. However, we noticed that changes very quickly. As they start actually collecting and seeing how simple it is, that it's actually not a horrible thing. Some of the feedback I've received is that some retailers actually like the collection because it's another touch point with their customers. And then we now offer on-site pickup for applicators, seed facilities, golf courses, large farms. So alleviating what's coming back to the retailers or what was at municipal sites. Again, because of that, those trailers, there's a couple of them our contractor uses. We can actually do a more efficient collection and collect at other locations. So the ratepayer education program, how does that work? One of the questions is, well, since 2021, it's been announced, we've been communicating it as well with retailers, municipalities through producer, radio ads, direct outreach, events such as Ag Expo. And then since 2022, we've had the resources for municipalities to use, and we've been communicating with, through the AAAF, the Alberta Association of Agricultural Fieldmen, so the ASBs. And then what's the process for improperly disposed of containers at transfer stations after the closure? So obviously no jugs should be accepted after the final clean out. They should be directed to the point of purchase. However, if containers are dropped off after hours when it's unattended, just reach out to Clean Farms. We will work with you and manage it. If it's an ongoing issue, there's going to be something that we'll have to figure out. We do know that there are going to be some that trickle in, and we will manage it and figure out how to get them collected. They just will need to be in bags, just with the collection method with that trailer, no loose jugs. And then the cost to retailers was one of the other questions. So this is a full value chain solution. Our manufacturers and distributors, they're paying for the program, and then the growers prepare it, and retailers offer in-kind support by collecting for their customers. So the cost to them is having some space in their yard, as well as, some time from their staff to assist with the farmers, direct them, and do a bit of an inspection of that. Ideally, that farmers are bringing in rinsed containers, not unrinsed containers. We do have a grant available, which we had last year, and we're doing again this year. So for some retailers, most in the province have fence sites. Some of them do not, and they don't have a great area for storing them. So we have a grant, a matching grant for funds for things like a chain link fence or some gravel, just to have a space for them. And then the other question that I don't have on here, but I'm just thinking of that we get is, or have received from some retailers and just public is, okay, what about contamination issues? So when the containers are triple rinsed, they are classified as a non-hazardous plastic recyclable. So when they're rinsed properly, they're just a plastic recyclable and there is no risk. The bags keep them contained from blowing around, and then make it easier for pickup. And I believe that's all that I have yet. So if anybody wants me to go back to any specific slide and or have other questions, feel free to fire away.
Okay, any board members got questions for Davin? I guess this is, yeah, it was excellent. I was just one, it's probably not in your wheelhouse, but the jugs that do have a little bit of old expired chemical in them,
yeah,
where do they go?
So we have a collection program that's called the Unwanted Pesticide and Livestock Medication Program, UPLM we call it. So that happens on a 3-year rotation. Southern Alberta was last fall, which is basically, I think it's Highway 12 that runs east-west from Red Deer. That's kind of the line that's drawn. It's always in October. So Southern Alberta was this October. This coming October, 2025, is Northern Alberta and the Peace region. Then in 2027, there will not be no collection in Alberta. Then it repeats. Southern, Northern, nothing. Southern, Northern. So for you all, it will be a selection process happens, beginning now. Sites are finalized around August, and then we start notifying everyone, the retailers. All retailers are notified, but it's always at a retail location. There will be about 20 locations in Northern Alberta. So 4 per day over the course of Monday to Friday, runs 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Anybody that has those products brings them to their closest site. And we have a hazardous waste contractor there, which is managing the collection of it. And then they get sent for safe disposal. The product does, and the containers where they can be, they're recycled as well.
Okay, that's great.
And this goes for like really old stuff as well. I mean, the hoe grass that came in, steel, the 5-gallon pails, basically any of those products that are deregistered, old, unusable because they were frozen. But yeah, we will be sending out, and all the fieldmen will get a notification, as well as all the landfills. I have a connection through through a couple channels, especially with the grain bag and twine program. So all the landfill managers or utilities are usually contacts of mine, and they get notified as well of this collection, the locations, the dates, and that gets sent out late August for the October collections.
Okay, great, thank you. Larry Clark has a question.
Yeah. Just a question on northern and southern is Highway 12 runs right through the center of our county. So
Yeah, so you guys are fortunate. You kind of get you get it both. You get it 2 years.
Okay. That there would be a drop off point somewhere in Stettler.
Yeah, so not necessarily in Stettler, because we distribute it around through the retailers so that everybody has an opportunity to host it. As you know, with some of you being producers, some will never step foot on one retailer's property or another. So it gives an opportunity for everybody to, speak to all the farmers around. But yeah, if it's at they're split around, but they're distributed so that the distance for the farmers not more than like a 30-40 minute drive.
Okay, well, that's good. Paul McKay.
Just for clarification, when you 3 rinse it, that doesn't mean that you can just put it in the sprayer tank that you dumped the chemical in. You're talking fresh water 3 times?
Yeah, so that should be, you're still mixing it into your spray tank, right? So as you empty the chemical, if you're using a chem handler, it's easy. It's like 30 seconds, which is about triple rinsing. And that water that's rinsing through the container is going to go in the spray tank.
Right.
So same thing if you were emptying it without a chem handler, you're taking the lid off, you can triple rinse it, fill it with some water, shake it up, put that rinse aid into the spray tank, because you're mixing it with water anyways, right?
Yeah. And for transportation and whatever, when you put them in the bags, the labels in the booklets should be removed, all the plastic on the outside.
The booklets, yeah, because of the volume of paper that's in it, it's a lot of contamination in the recycling process, because obviously paper and plastic don't mix. The label itself is okay. It kind of gets dealt with in the shredding and wash process, the cleaning process. The booklet is just too much paper. So removing the booklet, the caps can stay on. So that's fine. The lids, if you're using a chem handler, so you're just puncturing the bottom, the lid can stay on. It's just pulling the MSDS booklet off.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then that can be, depending on the municipality, can be recycled, or, some unfortunately just discarded in the waste.
Evan, do you have a video of the proper handling of that?
Absolutely.
Maybe we could put that out and share it just to our Ag Service Board could put that up.
I will send that. We also have brochures, which I will send along, so I don't know what the distribution of farmhand helpers are in your county, but we have it in Spanish, Mandarin, Punjabi, so an actual step-by-step that's in all those, translated in those languages for if there's farmhands that English is not their first language. The other thing I want to mention about seed treatment containers, so for anybody using seed treatment, if you can bag them separately. So even if there's only 2 or 3 containers in the bag, put them in there. The dye in them, they get processed separately from the other plastic. When they all get mixed together, it turns all the plastic either red or blue, which changes the marketability of it. It makes it really hard to get it sold to a market to turn into a new product. So bagging the seed treatment containers separately. Okay. If you want to pass that along to your neighbors.
Sure. Any further questions from the board? No, I think that's good then. Appreciate your time, Davin. It was a very informative presentation, lots of good information shared. So definitely appreciate your time sharing that with us today.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
I guess I'll add one last thing is that our contractors are planning all the final site cleanouts. So they'll be coming to clean out all the municipal sites here in the next few weeks. And then we do a sign off that they've all been cleaned out. And then that's where we go forward with, okay, if any jugs show up, you give me a shout and we figure out getting them picked up.
Deb, I just have one more question. Is there any grant funding for cleaning these sites after the fact? Like, so they're on our municipal transfer sites. There's a fence and there's some stuff in there. Is there any grant money to help clean that up? And I'm sure that there's no contamination there, but if there was, it would be advantageous for us to maybe strip some of the top. They're a burned area, and I would think the proper way to do it is probably take that stuff out of there, but I don't know.
So we don't have any grant funding for it. The sites were set up originally by the government with the municipalities. We just offered the collection service of getting the containers moved. I will send again, which has been sent in the past to all the fieldmen and managers, but I can send again with that same email with the video and whatnot, the direction that we've received from Alberta Environment on who to contact in the area with Alberta Environment, and then they provide the direction on what their requirements are for site closure.
Okay, no, that's fair. I just wondered if you knew of something, and if something comes up, please let us know that, you're a little bit more in the know. Thank you.
Yeah, and in terms of I know some municipalities have just changed the use of it because they're on a transfer site. It's not that the transfer site's not closing. So it's in some cases, the direction I've heard is that it's not closing, so there's no massive remediation needed to do. Just change the use of it. Use it to store tires or whatever, right? But that's a discussion specifically with the representative for the area from Alberta Environment. And I'll send that along as well.
Okay, no, that's awesome. Thank you, Davin.
You bet. Okay, thanks for having me. I believe, well, you guys have my contact, but here it is anyway. If anybody wants to write it down, my phone number, any of the producers in the room, if you have any questions, you can give me a shout at any time. I will put one last plug for the grain bags and twine as well. So that's being collected in the county. So reminding everyone that we do collect that for recycling, rolled up grain bags, as well as twine in collection bags. If any of you know anybody in 4-H, we're rounding near the end of a competition for 4-H clubs where every bag of twine that's brought into a site, they can enter on our website for a chance to win $3,000 for their club. So there's 2 more 4-H prizes. They'll be drawn. They can bring the twine in up until May 31st.
And you'll send that info out to us too as well, eh?
I will, yeah.
Already been advertising this program.
Okay.
We've been
Yeah,
sharing that.
I know you guys have been advertising it already, but yes, I will include that as well so that it can be forwarded on and you guys can all see, the specifics on it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Davin. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Evan.
Alrighty, just a couple things. Oh yeah, Paul?
Yes.
Just one question, and it doesn't pertain to this. At the community awards night, we were sitting with a gentleman, and Ernie knows the gentleman, and he was asking about silage bags. He's got a whole bunch. He's a small time farmer, and if we collected them or had still the roller to roll them up, sort of a thing. He says because they're just all over. He washes them down as best he can, and he was just wondering some information on it. If we could round them up or help them get it and what to do with them afterwards. So
Yeah, we had one request for silage tarp rolling already, and then the guys went out there and the tarp was froze down. So it's on pause until it thaws out, but do that collection with the grain bag roller. So
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and then I just have a couple quick questions for administration. I know on our transfer sites where these containers are being collected with the fencing and stuff, I was thinking if that fencing was taken down, it'd be less tempting to throw something in there.
That's what I was thinking too.
And who's responsible? Would that be the counties or the waste management?
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, I've been in discussion with the manager of Stettler Waste Management about this, and we will take that conversation now and we'll go further with Alberta Environment. But as our transfer sites are not changing the use, we feel as though we should be able to get away specifically with removing the fencing material around those sites. But we do also want to work at removing the berm, the containment berms, just to further ensure that people don't have that thought that this is where I've put it before, I'll put it there again.
There you go.
Absolutely, because some of our transfer sites, I'll be completely honest, get very busy during the day, and our operators at those transfer sites for Stettler Waste Management may be working with someone and they don't have eyes on everyone at all the time. And I mean, it would be unfortunate if, when they are helping and assisting someone with what they're doing, that someone else comes along, and not by any means of wrongdoing or anything like that, but just by that same idea that this is where I've always put them, I'll put them there.
Would we put up some sort of sign and notifying people what they can do with their bags now? Is that the plan?
We already have signs posted that have January 1, 2025. This site is now closed. So there's 2 transfer stations that are missing them. I sent it to Damon in an email, but they're posted on the fence around.
Because I don't think Erskine has it yet.
Yeah, I think those are the 2 that are missing is Erskine.
The only reason I say that is because I saw that somebody had tossed another bunch in there, so that's why.
Buy more signs right on the fence, I see.
Yeah, and with discussions with the manager of Stettler Waste Management, the information will be transferred out to all of the transfer station attendants that this program is in effect, that it's ceased, that we will not be accepting any more of those jugs at those locations, and that we'll work towards then reclamation of those sites.
Yeah, so it's Erskine and Big Valley that are missing the signs.
Gadsby, I'll look on Saturday, but I didn't notice the sign.
Larry?
We're all gonna have to watch, because at one point, especially when you had more commercial sprayers, I know a lot of them are using totes now, but they'd pull in and they'd leave all the jugs at the gates. And I just don't want us to see it get back to that, because it was pretty easy to pick them up and take them to the transfer site before, whereas now you got to pick them up, you got to try and contain them in the back of a pickup to drive into a retailer in Stettler. And I just want to, we're going to have to watch, because I can just see stuff getting left and being ditches, and it'll be, the easier you make this, the more likely people are to adhere to it.
Yeah, I saw lots of people bringing in with stock trailers, and they seem to stick around in there.
Paul?
I can't remember where we picked it up, but I think it was at the regional transfer site that they had the bags there that you could put them in. So I think if need be, in those cases, you could just go there if we're going to continue that process and go that way. At least you'd have them in a bigger bag that was, contained that way, instead of trying to take boxes and dumping them off at the transfer station or whatever, and then to the retailer. So.
And with cardboard and stuff, what happens to those boxes? Can you throw them into the cardboard when they've had
Yep.
spray? Okay.
Yeah. Assuming you haven't spilled chemical all over them, like they're just a box, but.
And my other comment was, I think before we head into spraying season, we need another push on the information that these are closing, where they go, and all that sort of thing, one more time.
Yeah, we'll put together a little package for Nikki and for the county connections.
Okay, perfect. So next meeting is April 16th, and one final motion. Mr. Grover? Adjourn. All those in favor? And carry.
Yeah.